Well, good evening, everyone. I am Cindy Klement. Craig is not going to be joining us this evening, so I am both your host and presenter for this webinar. So welcome. This is my granddaughter in this picture. I took her to my office and she wanted to look at an anatomy and physiology book that was on my shelf. She really loves learning about the human body. And really, people, this photo wasn't staged. I turned and saw her and quickly took the photo because she just melted my heart, especially when she said, "Grandma, I want to do what you do when I grow up." So folks, if we teach them when they're young, they can begin to understand the importance of a healthy body. And folks, this is a child with a dairy intolerance. She cannot have a bowel movement on her own if she eats any dairy whatsoever. So food intolerances can manifest in a number of ways, and thus tonight's presentation is on dairy-free, gluten-free, and soy-free. There are more than 170 foods that have been reported to cause reactions in people in the United States, but there are really just 9 major foods that are responsible for most of these serious food allergy reactions in the United States. And those 9 foods are milk, egg, peanut, tree nuts, wheat, soy, fish, shellfish, and then as of January 1st this year, sesame seed is now required to be labeled as an allergen on food packages, including dietary supplements. Now, the primary difference between an allergy, a sensitivity, and an intolerance is that an allergy is characterized by an immune system reaction to something, to a substance or a food, and that's an allergy. So think of it as an immune reaction. A sensitivity, on the other hand, involves no immune response. And an intolerance is characterized by the body lacking a chemical or enzyme needed to digest a certain food, like lactose intolerance, something like that. So a food intolerance is sometimes confused with or even mislabeled as a food allergy. But think of it this way, it makes it really simple. A food intolerance involves the digestive system. Food allergies involve the immune system. So with a food allergy, even a microscopic amount of a particular food has the potential to lead to a serious or life-threatening reaction, of course, called anaphylaxis. A food sensitivity is not going to cause anaphylaxis, no matter how much of that offending food is consumed or drank or whatever. Now, it's important to note that with 6 million people in the United States allergic to dairy, 2 million people or so to soy, and about 2.5 million people to wheat, exposure to these substances can occur. And some folks don't read the label thoroughly, or really, they may not even know how to read the label accurately. And I'm going to show you later on how that can be really deceiving on these food labels. But it's especially important for people not only that are eating, but also those who are taking supplements, because not all supplements are allergenic free or allergy free. Now, when a person with a soy allergy is exposed to soy, the proteins in soy, they bind to specific antibodies that are made by the person's immune system. And then this in turn triggers the person's immune defenses, and it leads to these reaction symptoms. And the symptoms can be either mild or extremely severe. Now, soybeans are just a member of the legume family. Beans and peas and lentils and peanuts, they are also all legumes. Now, of course, there is some debate about soy due to this opposing research that suggests both health benefits from soy, but also negative effects of soy in certain situations. But along with being a high-quality protein, it has vitamins and minerals and fiber. Soy contains a high concentration of something called isoflavones. And what isoflavones are a type of plant estrogen, or phyto is plant, or phytoestrogen. And this plant estrogen is similar in function to the human estrogen. Of course, it has much weaker effects. But these soy isoflavones can bind to the estrogen receptors in our body, and they appear to have different actions in the body based on a number of things, such as the person's hormone levels, or the type of soy being studied, whether it was fermented or unfermented, whether it was a protein powder or just soybeans or even tofu. So, due to that contrary research and the potential allergic reactions, Touchstone Essentials products are soy-free. So it's not something we have to worry about with Touchstone Essentials. Now, according to the University of California in San Francisco, a soy allergy is one of the most common food allergies in infants and children. However, it's often outgrown by the age of 5. Now, as symptoms of a soy allergy or a sensitivity, again, it can be either mild or severe, but it can have things, think skin, so hives or itching or eczema. And then think about the face, the tingling sensation in the mouth, or the swelling of the lips or the face or the tongue, or even swelling of the throat or other parts of the body. There can be wheezing, a runny nose, there can be breathing troubles, and then digestive-wise, it could be abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, or even nausea. So lastly, it can be, think of it as, brain, so dizziness, lightheadedness, or even fainting. So now I talked briefly about reading the labels and how confusing it can be, but you see, manufacturers can comply with federal law requirements in just one of 3 ways. So look at the image on this slide. They can list the allergen in plain English in the ingredient list itself. So we're looking at the image and it says ingredients, and there it's circled soy lecithin. But they can also list the allergen, again, in plain English, but they can put it in parentheses immediately following a particular food. So for instance, if it's miso, they can put soy in parentheses. So that can be a little tricky for some people. But number 3, they can list it by having a separate, what's called contains statement immediately after or kind of next to the list of ingredients. And it has to be the same size, or at least the same size as the ingredient list. But what they can simply say is contains soy. Now, this makes it really tricky reading labels. Of course, Touchstone Essentials makes it easy because there is no soy in their products. Now, dairy is a high-quality protein. It's rich in calcium, and depending on where the milk originates from, or what I should say, where the cows that are creating this milk, the lifestyle they have, are they eating grass or what are they eating? Dairy can also be a source of omega-3 fatty acids, and fermented foods like buttermilk or yogurt or cottage cheese, of course, they all contain probiotics, and that's something that our gut loves. In fact, there was a study involving about 2,000 men that was published by the British Journal of Nutrition. And they found that those men who ate plenty of fermented dairy products, again, that's that yogurt, cottage cheese, buttermilk, they actually had a smaller risk of coronary artery disease than the men who ate less of those products. And this, of course, then supports the earlier studies that are showing that fermented dairy products have more healthful effects on our cholesterol profile. It's called our blood lipid profile, and also a more healthful effect on the risk of heart disease than, of course, unfermented dairy products. But that said, in the United States, about 36% of people have lactose intolerance. Now, lactose intolerance, of course, it's a condition which, I should say, where a person has digestive symptoms such as bloating or diarrhea or gas after consuming food or drinks that contain milk, or really lactose, because lactose is just a milk sugar. It's naturally found in milk and milk products, or even cheese and ice cream. But in lactose intolerance, the digestive symptoms are caused by lactose malabsorption. So here again is where we don't have that enzyme to break a food down. So in lactose malabsorption, your small intestine can't digest or break down the lactose you eat or drink, and this in turn then causes those digestive symptoms. Now, lactose intolerance is different from a milk allergy. A milk allergy is an immune system disorder. All allergies are immune system disorders. So a milk allergy can cause anaphylaxis, which I'm sure you know is that a very life-threatening reaction. And what it does is it narrows the airways and it can block the breathing. Now, believe it or not, milk is the third most common food after peanuts and tree nuts that causes anaphylaxis. Now, the signs and symptoms of a milk allergy, again, it can range from mild to severe. And again, it can include that wheezing or hives or that swelling, vomiting, and other digestive disorders. There's only 4 to 5% of the population in the US that have a dairy allergy, but there are 30 to 50 million Americans who are lactose intolerant. And interestingly, 80% of all African Americans and Native Americans are lactose intolerant. But of course, again, Touchstone Essential makes it easy. You don't have to read the labels. All of their products are dairy-free. Gluten is actually a protein that's found in the wheat plant as well as in other grains such as rye or barley or something called triticale, which is a cross between rye and barley. Now, protease, and I'm sure you've heard us talk about that before, protease is the enzyme that helps the body break down proteins. And remember, gluten is a protein found in plant foods, but protease can't completely break down gluten. And sometimes gluten is in oats, but only because the oats may have been processed with other foods that contain gluten, because oats themselves don't actually contain gluten. But this undigested gluten makes its way to the small intestine. So again, remember, protease is the enzyme that helps the body break it down, but it can't completely break it down. So the undigested gluten then makes its way to the small intestine, and most people can handle that undigested gluten with no problems. But in some people, gluten can trigger a severe autoimmune response, or even, other, I should say, unpleasant symptoms. Now, a wheat allergy means just that. An allergy to wheat, but not gluten itself. So it gets a little tricky. But a wheat allergy is more common among children than adults. In fact, It's estimated that approximately 66% of children outgrow their wheat allergies by the age of 12, and I was one of those kids. I used to eat Wheaties because I liked Wheaties when I was growing up, and when we go to Dad's store and pull out the worst cereal imaginable, but I would always get eczema from it. So these are some of the symptoms of a wheat allergy: skin rashes, getting nasal congestion or sneezing, or again, digestive issues. Now, non-celiac gluten sensitivity is actually just a gluten intolerance. So it's not a wheat allergy. It's a gluten intolerance. And what it is when the gastrointestinal irritation is caused by gluten in people that don't have celiac disease. And of course, the symptoms are going to be things like the cramping, the bloating, headaches, rashes, diarrhea. And eating gluten causes many of the same symptoms as does celiac disease, but it doesn't damage the intestinal tract, whereas celiac sprue does. There are about 6 to 7% of the United States population that is gluten intolerant, and it is far more common than the actual disease, celiac disease, because that only affects about 1% of the population. Now, remember, celiac disease is an autoimmune response to gluten, and this means that the body tries to fight against gluten as if it were a virus. And then again, this reaction causes inflammation and can damage, well, it does, it damages the digestive tract. And again, we've got bloating and constipation and diarrhea or fatigue, and oftentimes very smelly feces. Now, over time, if the person doesn't know they have celiac disease and they continue to eat gluten foods, over time, they experience weight loss, malnutrition, and even vitamin deficiencies can occur. Now, just so you know, celiac disease is the result of an abnormal gene. So this isn't something you can actually catch or actually create in the body. Now, gluten-related disorders such as celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitivity or wheat allergy, they can all affect your skin, your digestive system, your nervous system. They can affect your moods and your joints. But again, there's those 3 ways to determine if a food contains gluten, which again, I think makes it quite burdensome for those who are trying to avoid allergens. But again, there's no need to read the labels on Touchstone Essential products because they're gluten-free and their quality assurance guarantees it. But on April 13th, there's a product called Super Kids Colostrum, and it was recalled because it contained undeclared milk allergens. And then in March, just of this year, a couple months ago, 2 things happened. First of all, undeclared soy was found in some Worcester sauce. I can't even say it. Worcester sauce. I can't even say it. Sorry about that. But also in March, gluten-free. I love this one. Gluten-free Reese's Pieces brownie brittle had wheat in it. Of course it does. And quality assurance, folks, it really matters. And really, hence, these companies have greatly failed at it. Now, according to the National Celiac Association, there are also several varieties of Rainbow Light vitamins that were labeled gluten-free. But here's what's interesting. They also have the statement on that product that says gluten-free, a statement that says contains milk, soy, and wheat traces from enzyme fermentation media. So again, this label, it doesn't make sense to people, and manufacturers are not doing their job or making it easy on consumers. But of course, Touchstone Essentials is really picky. There are over 500 million farms in the world but Touchstone Essentials only works with a few that really strictly follow organic, sustainable practices so they can get those trusted fruits and vegetables. It's got to have the right crop, the right soil, and land management, and that really does make a difference. And then, of course, Touchstone Essentials, what they call it, farm to bottle approach, means that organic plants are harvested at the peak of ripeness, not picked green, not overripe, but at the peak of ripeness. And then they're quickly and really very gently processed without damage, without using, I should say, damaging heat or even chemical solvents. And so really it is a freshness you can taste. I know it is. And yes, plants may love sunlight, but once they're harvested, we have to keep them in the dark to protect that goodness. So Touchstone Essentials packaging with the brown bottles shields those delicate nutrients from oxidizing light. And then we're going to get that full measure of nutrition in every serving. And I really like that we have dark glass bottles that can be recycled. Now, of course, Touchstone Essential believes that trust is earned, as it should be. And one of the ways they seek to earn the trust of their customers or their members is through transparency. They're not just going to tell you why their products are better. They're going to show you. And that's with their ongoing commitment to this independent third-party testing. So you can rest assured that when you supplement your diet with Touchstone Essential products, every product is gluten-free, it's dairy-free, it's soy-free, and then it's backed by independent third-party testing. So there's really no label reading required. Now, folks, that concludes tonight's presentation, but I want to point this out. If you missed our presentation last time on the importance of organic and non-GMO foods, please, I think it's 27 minutes long or something like that. Take a few minutes to learn more about that. All of these presentations can be found on the front page of the website, but look under the word collaborate. It's just to the right of that orange shop button. And when you click on collaborate, you can scroll down to Touchstone Essentials Live, and then you keep scrolling down until you come to the section that says watch previously recorded broadcasts. And there you'll see Touchstone Essential Live product training with Cindy Klement. And currently, folks, there are 40 webinars that have been posted. So really enjoy. Pass the learning on to your family, your friends, your customers, and invite them to join us next time. We're going to take an in-depth look at where we are exposed to PCBs, how to further avoid that exposure, and then how to detoxify PCBs from the body. So folks, have a beautiful evening, everyone. Good night, and thanks for joining us tonight. Bye now.